to have the World Conference in Taiwan. And I'm so proud of you, proud of WCCI family. And I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Chowdhury. Excuse my take off my glasses because I didn't read my reading glasses. And I won't pray like our president, something ministry all the month. Yeah, Ambassador Chowdhury, here recently the Senior Special Advisor to UN General Assembly President has devoted many years as the inspirational chairperson of the sustainable peace and development, advancing the course of the global movement of the culture of peace that energizing civil society all over the world. As a career diploma, a permanent representative to United Nations, President of the UN Secretary Council, President of UNICEF Board, UN Under-Secretary General, and received the U10 Peace Award, UNESCO Gandhi Gold Medal for Culture of Peace, Spirit of the UN Award, and University of Massachusetts, Boston, and Chancellor's Medal of Global Leadership for Peace. Ambassador Chowdhury has a wealth of experience in critical issues of our time: peace, sustainable development, and human rights. And ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome our keynote speaker, Ambassador Chowdhury. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shi, for that introduction. WCCI President, Dr. Ismail Merici, WCCI Executive Director, Dr. Stella Matriano, Director of the 15th Conference, Dr. Victor Frank, past President, Dr. Vincent Xi, and my dear friend, eminent pioneer in peace education and the keynote speaker for the 14th conference, Betty Greer. I am deeply honored to speak at this 15th in the series of world conferences in education that your prestigious organization, the World Council on Curriculum and Instruction, WCCI, is holding this year in the beautiful city of Kaohsiung. I thank the WCCI Executive Board of Directors for inviting me to present the keynote address at this well-attended, well-prepared, and well-organized biennial conference. It is very encouraging to see so many of you joining from the various parts of the world to share your contribution towards the forward-looking theme of the conference, educating for peace and harmony with the earth and ourselves. This theme is very pertinent in the current global context, more so as it connects peace education with our planet and ourselves, obviously both individually and collectively. Centrality of the culture of peace and integral relevance of education in our lives will be the focus of my keynote speech, as its title, Educating for Sustainable Culture of Peace, a Global Responsibility, makes it very clear. I also believe it fits in very well with the overall theme of the conference and the mission of WCCI. As you all know well, the mission of WCCI as a transnational educational organization committed to achieving a just and peaceful world community is appropriately reflected in the preamble of its constitution, which asserts that, and I quote, all curricular and instructional programs should strive to facilitate in every person the development of one, a comprehensive sense of respect of self, others and the environment, and two, the capacity to participate at all levels of our society from local to global. And that is the preamble of the Constitution of WCCI. In advancing this goal, WCCI has focused on the culture of peace in choosing its themes for a number of conferences in the past years. I would request you to recall that some years ago it was pedagogy of diversity, creating a culture of peace. Another year it was building a culture of peace for a civil society, creating a global culture of peace. Strategies for curriculum and development. In recent times, we have seen new conflicts breaking out in different parts of the world. For some of the old ones, where we thought we were looking at light at the end of the tunnel, things have gone the opposite direction. It is therefore important that we take a close look at our approaches toward bringing peace to our societies and bridging the gulf of hatred. We have to find out where we went wrong. We need to stop forever the killings of innocent children that recently took place in an elementary school in the United States. And we have to find better ways to establish peace. We need to remember that in the hate and violence-filled 20th century, we have seen the power of nonviolence in the sacrifices of Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. Forces of hatred and intolerance could claim their lives, but not their souls. The quest for peace is as old as human history. The prehistoric caveman was also looking for peace. And we are here today talking about peace and harmony, trying to see how best to achieve a sustainable peace. I say that it is the longest human endeavor or quest going on, but it runs alongside many of the things that we do on a daily basis. Peace is integral to human existence in everything we do, in everything we say, and in every thought we have. There is a place for peace. We should not isolate peace as something separate or distant. We should know how to relate to one another without being aggressive, without being violent, without being disrespectful, without neglect, without prejudice. It is important to realize that the absence of peace takes away the opportunities that we need to better ourselves, to prepare ourselves, and to empower ourselves to face the challenges of the world. Absence of peace makes our challenges, our struggles much more difficult. Today's world and its problems are becoming increasingly more interdependent. and interconnected due to globalization and advancement in science and technology. At the same time, fragmented global governance has led to missing the big picture and addressing symptoms, not causes. Here, let me express my concern that militarism is impoverishing and maiming both the earth and the humanity. Most disturbing is that often today's atrocities are directed to people living in the same community or neighborhood. Hatred and intolerance have blurred the vision of the perpetrators. Great differences still exist between peoples and regions. Disparities and inequalities have, over the years, only augmented, causing the world to enter into a new era of insecurity and uncertainty. Despite all the progress, too many people live in extreme poverty and hunger, do not have access to as basic things as clean water or education and health. Unfortunately, worst hit victims of this everywhere are the women and children. Interdependency of the world is not, if not addressed with sanity, can change into a social, economic, nuclear, or environmental catastrophe. The magnitude of these problems require all human beings to work together in finding new, workable, realistic solutions. The first step towards examining the road to peace should start with an understanding of the implications of these realities. The values of nonviolence, tolerance, and democracy, flourishing of the culture of peace will generate the mindset that is a prerequisite for the transition from force to reason, from conflict and violence to dialogue and peace. And I believe the culture of peace will provide the bedrock to support a stable, progressing and prospering world, a world that is finally at peace with itself. In today's world, more so, the culture of peace should be seen as the essence of a new humanity, a new global civilization based on inner oneness and outer diversity. The need for the culture of peace is evident as we reflect on how our civilization has succumbed from time to time to human frailties of greed, discrimination, xenophobia, prejudice and selfishness. Inequality, injustice and exclusion generate structural violence that is incompatible with peace at both national and global levels. We have seen that heinous acts are often committed under the veil of public mandates, when in fact they are the wishes of few in power, be they economic, political, military, or even religious. Poverty and lack of opportunities deprive people of their dignity as human beings, leaving them hopeless and incapable of pursuing the kind of life they may deserve. I have seen this from close quarters as I traveled extensively in the poorest and the most vulnerable countries of the world, championing their cause in my last responsibility with the United Nations. marginalization and abuse because of ethnicity, gender or religion, repression or bias, violence or intolerance are all closely linked to poverty and the concurrent lack of basic human rights. We must not forget that it is not only morally unsupportable but also practically unrealistic to achieve sustainable peace without addressing squarely the crushing problems of poverty and human insecurity. There will be no development without peace and no peace without development. Another preeminent concern that should get our attention is that the concept of security has for too long been interpreted narrowly as security of territory from external aggression and has been related to the concept of nation states than to people. In this process, the legitimate concerns of common people and their perpetual quest for individual security in their daily lives are forgotten. End of Cold War has brought to the fore very clearly that many conflicts and their causes are within nations rather than between nations. For most people of the world, a sense of insecurity comes not so much from the traditional security concerns, but from the concerns about their survival, self-preservation and well-being in a day-to-day context. In the irreversible globalization process that has enveloped both national and individual interactions throughout the world, it is absolutely essential that human security in a broader sense should receive priority attention of the international community. How can we build a culture of peace? A lot of efforts have been made to promote the culture of peace in global forums. The United Nations designated 2000 as the International Year of the Culture of Peace, and the years 2001 to 2010 as the International Decade for a Culture of Peace and Nonviolence for the Children of the World. In 1999, the United Nations adopted the Declaration and Program of Action on the Culture of Peace. Here is the booklet of that. A monumental document that transcends boundaries, cultures, societies, and nations. It was an honor for me to chair the 9-month-long negotiations that led to the adoption of this historic norm-setting document that is considered as one of the most significant legacies of the United Nations that would hopefully endure generations. Through this landmark adoption, the General Assembly laid down humanity's charter for the new approaching millennium. Like many General Assembly documents, the program of action is oriented towards specific acts of peace, identifying 8 specific areas. It encourages actions at all levels: the individual, the family, the community, the nation, the region, and indeed at global levels. The principles of the culture of peace were reaffirmed at the largest ever gatherings of the world leaders at the UN Millennium Summit in 2000 and the follow-up World Summit in 2005. These are very important developments. However, a lot more needs to be done if the culture of peace is to have the necessary impact on poverty and conflict, and above all, on us as individuals, on each one of us. It needs to move out of the international conference rooms to national parliaments, to local governments, to village councils, and to our homes. It needs to be transformed into a truly universal movement that guides policy actions as much as individual conduct. In short, we need to build a global citizenry whose everyday actions are guided by the values of peace and justice. Fortunately, turning the culture of peace into a global, universal movement is not an expensive venture. It requires no grand scheme. All that is needed is for every one of us to be a true believer in peace and non-violence, and to practice what we profess. Whether it is at events such as this, in places of worship, in schools, or in our homes, a lot can be achieved in promoting the culture of peace through individual resolve and action. Peace and non-violence should become a part of our daily existence. This is the only way we shall achieve a just and sustainable peace in the world. Here I would like to make a special reference to the role of family in promoting the culture of peace. As the oldest institution in human history, family is absolutely at the core of generating the culture of peace. Younger members of the society growing up in a family that teaches them the virtues of tolerance, harmony, and understanding will grow up with the right values that inculcate the culture of peace. In my introduction to the 2008 publication titled Peace Education, A Pathway to a Culture of Peace, I wrote, and I quote here, as Maria Montessori had articulated so appropriately, those who want a violent way of living prepare young people for that. But those who want peace have neglected their young children and adolescents, and that way are unable to organize them for peace. However, the last decades of violence and human insecurity had led to a growing realization in the world of education today that children should be educated in the art of peaceful living. As a result, more and more peace concepts, attitudes, values, and social skills are being integrated into school curricula in many countries. It is being increasingly realized that overemphasis on cognitive learning in schools at the cost of developing children's emotional, social, moral, and humanistic approach aspects has been a costly mistake. End of quote. In UNICEF, peace education is very succinctly defined as the process of promoting the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values needed to bring about behavior change that will enable children, youth, and adults to prevent conflict and violence, both overt and structural, to resolve conflict peacefully, and to create the conditions conducive to peace, whether at an interpersonal, intergroup, national, or international levels. Even Secretary General Ban Ki-moon asserted on 14th of September this year at the high-level Forum on the Culture of Peace at the United Nations that, and I quote him, a key ingredient in building culture of peace is education. We are here to talk about how to create this culture of peace. I have a simple one-word answer: education. Through education, we teach children not to hate. Through education, we raise leaders who act with wisdom and compassion. Through education, we establish a true, lasting culture of peace. End of quote. He went on to say, and again I quote, next week I will launch a new global initiative called Education First. The aim is to bring together all partners. We want to give every child the chance to attend school. We want them to have quality lessons, and we want to strengthen their core values. This is how we build a culture of peace. End of quote. To be worthwhile, this global initiative needs to focus on building the culture of peace for humanity. Peace education needs to be accepted in all parts of the world, in all societies and countries, as an essential element in creating the culture of peace. To meet effectively the challenges posed by the present complexity of our time, the young of today deserves a radically different education. One that does not glorify war, but educates for peace, non-violence, and international cooperation. They need the skills and knowledge to create and nurture peace for their individual selves as well as for the world they belong to. Learning about the culture of peace, having the potential of personal transformation, should be incorporated in all educational institutions as part of their curriculum and should become an essential part of our educational process as reading and writing. Never has it been more important for us to learn about the world and understand its diversity. The task of educating children and young people to find non-aggressive means to relate to one another is of primary importance. As I had underscored at the conference hosted by the Hague Appeal for Peace on educating towards the world without violence in Albania in 2004, and I quote, I say, the participation of young people in this process is very essential. Their inputs in terms of their own ideas on how to cooperate with each other in order to eliminate violence in our societies must be fully taken into account. End of quote. All educational institutions need to offer opportunities that prepare the students not only to live fulfilling lives, but also to be responsible and productive citizens of the world. For that, educators need to introduce holistic and empowering curricula that cultivate a culture of peace in each and every young mind. The global campaign for peace education has continued to contribute in a meaningful way towards this objective and must receive our continuous support. Peace education is more effective and meaningful when it is adapted according to the social and cultural context and the country's needs and aspirations. It should be enriched by its cultural and spiritual values, together with the universal human values. it should also be globally relevant. In its essence, peace education, as articulated by the Hague Agenda, encourages reflection, critical thinking, cooperation, and responsible action. It promotes multiculturalism and values of dignity and equality. It rightly emphasizes, and I quote, "A culture of peace will be achieved when citizens of the world understand global problems, have the skills to resolve conflicts constructively, know and live by international standards of human rights, gender and racial equality, appreciate cultural diversity, and respect the integrity of the earth." End of quote. Such educating for peace indeed should be more appropriately called education for global citizenship. Such learning cannot be achieved without well-intentioned, sustained, and systematic peace education that leads the way to the culture of peace. I am happy to note that the WCCI Special Interest Group on Peace Education has adopted a similar all-embracing focus. Often people wonder whether peace education should be introduced when the child is very young. I believe rather strongly that all ages are appropriate for such education. Only the method of teaching has to be suited to that age. For younger children, such teaching should include audiovisual materials and interactive exchanges. Teaching the value of tolerance, understanding, and respect for diversity among the school children could be introduced through exposing them to various countries of the world, their geography, history, and culture. To begin with, an informal class format could help. Such a format could even be included in any of the existing arrangements that involve social studies or general knowledge classes. In addition to expanding the capacity of the students to understand the issues, peace education should aim particularly at empowering the students, suited to their individual levels, to become agents of peace and nonviolence in their own lives as well as in their interaction with others in every sphere of their existence. Targeting the individual is meaningful because there cannot be true peace unless the individual mind is at peace. Connecting the role of individuals to broader global objectives, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. affirmed that, and I quote, "An individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity." End of quote. The UN Program of Action on the Culture of Peace pays special attention to the individual's self-transformation. In this context, I would reiterate that women in particular have a major role to play in promoting the culture of peace in our violence-ridden societies, thereby bringing in the lasting peace and reconciliation. While women are often the first victims of armed conflict, they must also and always be recognized as key to the resolution of the conflict. It is my strong belief that unless women are engaged in advancing the culture of peace at equal levels with men, sustainable peace would continue to elude us. From Burundi to Cambodia to Sierra Leone and Liberia, to Northern Ireland and the Middle East, women have shown great capacity as peacemakers. They assumed activist roles while holding together their families and communities. At the grassroots and community level, women have organized to resist militarization, to create space for dialogue and moderation, and to weave together the shattered fabric of society. Through my field experiences, I am proud to recognize that involvement of women in the peace processes in various conflict-ridden parts of the world has contributed immensely to ensuring longer-term benefits for their present as well as future generations. As has been rightly said, without peace, development is impossible, and without women, neither peace nor development can take place. Peace educator Loretta Navarro Castro has emphasized that, and I quote her, "Our work is a never-ending one. It is always a work in progress. The challenges seem never to end, and we are always in the alert mode because of the continuing and at times increasing threats to human and ecological well-being." End of quote. Peace education needs to be transformative, forward-looking, adaptive, comprehensive, and empowering. The work for peace is a continuous process, and I am convinced that culture of peace is absolutely the most essential vehicle for realizing the goals and objectives of the United Nations in the 21st century. Let me conclude by urging all of you most earnestly that we need to encourage the young people to be themselves, to build their own character, their own personality, which is embedded with understanding, tolerance, and respect for diversity, and in solidarity with the rest of humanity. I believe that to be very important, and we need to convey that to the young people. This is the minimum we can do as adults. We should do everything to empower them in the real sense, and I feel that such empowerment is going to stay with them for life. That is the significance of the culture of peace. That is its essence. This is the process of changing each one of us so that we become the agents of peace. It is not something temporary, like resolving a conflict in one area or between communities, without transforming and empowering people to sustain peace. Albert Einstein once said, and I quote, "The world is a dangerous place to live, not because of the people who are evil, but because of the people who do not do anything about it." Let us not sit back anymore. The time to act is now. Let us be the activists for the change we believe in. Thank you.